Hey, we're just getting started with book study, so I think we're good. But just want to get your guys' attention. So, Mr. Teddy, the birthday boy. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
You're
Thank
on,
you.
Clark, for the whole night.
Great. I've got the mics on. Everybody can hear. We've had some feedback about the mic, no pun intended. So, well, great. Thank you for being here this evening, and we're here ready to do another kind of study session, book study. We've been in our book, How Not to Be a Terrible School Board Member, and it's been gratifying to confirm over the last 10 chapters that none of you are terrible school board members. I've been reflecting on the superintendent's lessons learned quite a bit, and there's room for improvement there, but we've got some great school board members. Tonight we're looking at terrible habit, or chapter number 11 and chapter number 12, and terrible habit number 11 was abstain. It's entitled Abstain on Tough Votes. Now, for some of us, this will bring back some memories, but at any rate, who remembers who remembers kind of the scenario in the book? If you're like me and you read it in the last 45 minutes, you probably remember it pretty well.
My problem is I read it like the 45 minutes after the meeting last.
Oh, there you go.
I'm like, no, I don't remember.
You're an overachiever, so you're
I'll give it a
excused.
shot.
Please.
I need to do it.
Yeah, so this one, very hit home for sure. But especially since we're talking about bringing forward a bond to bring forward to the public. And in this one specifically, there's a lot of information that they've reached out to the public. There's been several meetings on it. So it says that there were volumes. Basically, they're filling up a bookshelf of one of the board members. And so, again, so when it came time to make a vote, there was a lot of information for and a lot of information against, and it was a tie. And then the third or the fourth, and then someone abstained. So it was 2-2 and then abstention. And the person kind of felt like, I just don't have enough information or something, or you know what. And then he got a lot of grief about it. That he's like, golly, well, you guys decided nothing, so they really heard it. So what do you do? And so that was kind of the premise of it all.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's exactly right. So you mentioned something I think that was key to the context here, Stan, which is that these people had plenty of time to go over the information. It had been a subject of discussion multiple times. All the information was available, and now it was time to vote. It wasn't a scenario where, I really need some more info before I commit here. And the other person abstained. Interestingly, if I'm remembering correctly, and don't hold me to this, but I believe this is the case, in our city charter, so I was on the city council briefly and kind of was in your position of voting on things. In the city charter, if somebody abstains, that's counted as a yes vote, but that's not typical. That's not typical. It's not the case here, and it's not the case with this scenario either. So the motion failed. They were looking at going forward with something, and because this person said, I'm out, I can't vote, it failed. So that was one piece that people were concerned about. And the other piece people were concerned about is, we elected you to make decisions, and you just, officially did not make a decision. What's up with that? So people were upset, like you say. And there were several different scenarios, and the one that was recommended by the author was what should this person have done instead?
Make a decision.
Right.
Yeah. But
Make an informed decision.
it says here, you've had adequate time to educate yourself, to consult and consider the proposal. It is now your responsibility to make an informed decision that you believe is in the best interest of the children of the district.
Right.
Yeah. It did mention there are some scenarios in which a person might want to abstain or recuse themselves from a discussion or a vote. Do you remember what those were?
Did you have one once?
Yeah,
There was
well,
a conflict of interest
A
with
conflict of
Embry-Riddle or
interest, if
something?
there's an item that
Yeah.
you have a personal stake in, then you should recuse yourself from that.
Right. We actually had, go ahead, please.
It also said if you do not have enough information, which wasn't the case here, or if you needed more time to discuss the issue, which was not the case here.
Sure, right. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Thanks for coming. So you're exactly right. I thought to myself when they said if there wasn't enough time to discuss the issue, you needed more information. That's a situation where you might vote to table it, right? Rather than say, hey, I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Yeah, good point.
That would maybe be my recommendation. But you're exactly right. Andy, I appreciate what you shared. We actually had a board member recently who was looking at an agenda item coming up and said, hey, I wonder if I should abstain from this. I wonder if this is something where I should not abstain but recuse myself. Asked me to reach out to our legal counsel, so we did. I got with Dave Paoli and explained the situation. And in this scenario, he explained that this board member asked some questions and found out that the board member didn't have any financial stake. You'll always have not always, in most cases, you will have a stake in what we're talking about, yes? Right? I mean, you got your kids in your schools. You went to the schools yourselves. You've got a lot of people sharing information. You'll always have some kind of a stake. But usually have some kind of stake in decisions. That's not a scenario where you would typically want to recuse yourself or abstain. It's if, according to our attorney, at least if there's some financial benefit to you or financial loss to you in voting one way or another. That's a scenario in which you must abstain. But otherwise, you're free to vote, and this is suggesting you probably should vote on most things unless there's an unusual scenario. So, any other thoughts about this one? There was something here that caught my eye. I always pay special attention to the superintendent's lessons learned, and it said, what should you do? Make sure that board members have all the information you need. Hopefully, you feel I do an adequate job of that. Please, if there's ever you need more information about something, I had a board member text me an hour ago, something like that, and say, hey, can you give me a little bit more information about this item? I said, I don't really know, but I'll get back with you in a minute. So I was able to do that, hopefully. If you ever need more information, don't hesitate to reach out at any point about things, including, just prior to the meeting or during the meeting. Those are appropriate times. But then it said, you might want to, as a superintendent, practice first aid by gently commenting on the need for everyone to vote unless there's a conflict of interest. I thought, ooh, that would be super awkward doing that during the meeting. I might want to do that afterwards. Then I read a couple sentences later, and it suggested just that. But we've had scenarios in the past where other board members have abstained, and I'm not sure I would have A, felt comfortable, or B, professional in saying, hey, board member number 3 over there, what's the matter with you? Don't you know people voted you in to vote on these things? So anyhow, those were lessons learned. Other thoughts, questions?
Is that part of our onboarding discussions? I don't recall
Good question.
talking about abstention.
I think we've got that in our board operations manual.
Okay.
There's a link in there.
Yeah.
It was in the training at the county, remember, and he said recluse all the time. And we
Oh,
were like, that is the
yes,
wrong
yes,
word.
yes.
We were like so stressed about it.
Say the right word.
So we were like, we were so distracted by just the word usage that I know we talked about when we should and should not recuse ourselves.
I remember
in
that.
our training.
And they do it at the board president's training as well. And it really, the last paragraph kind of struck me because it did say, I think there was a portion that says directly challenge a board member's decision to abstain, right? It's a tricky task, but, our advisement in all our training was, if you do abstain, make it clear as why you want us to abstain. And a lot of times it may just be that you don't, I think that like for minutes, you're like, I'm going to abstain because I wasn't present for the minutes, so I'm not going to approve them or something along
There you
those
go.
lines. So it could be very, very non-decisive or, not decisive, but controversial. It's
Right.
just like you're letting the public know this is the reason why I'm abstaining, and you give them the audience to do so.
Do we, that was the question I was going to ask. Are we allowed to ask the board member that abstains at the board meeting the reason for abstention? I always thought we were.
went through this, yeah, and that's
Okay.
from the county superintendent's advisement, and it is in, it's not necessarily a state statute, but it's a recommendation under the Secretary of State. So we went through that, and it's mainly so that the public understands where why you're choosing to abstain, and it doesn't always have to be a controversial deal.
Right, and it wouldn't have to be a financial stake. That's the scenario in which you must recuse yourself or abstain. Otherwise, there are other scenarios. I'll give you it really quick, and we'll move on to the other one. When I was on city council, I abstained one time, and as I recall, we were considering a liquor license, and the liquor license was for a place that was going to be relatively close to Mile High. It met statutory requirements in terms of distance from the school, but I just wasn't comfortable with another establishment serving liquor that close to the school. It was pretty close. It was just right in the alley right off of the entrance of Mile High. And so I shared, this is how I feel. this meets statutory requirements, so there's no reason for me to vote against this. I'd not be following the law to vote against this, but I just don't want to go on record having approved another bar, 150 yards from the front of Mile High kind of a thing. So I said, I'm going to abstain on this one. All right, very good. So that one was where someone's maybe too wishy-washy. This one's where maybe somebody's a little too decisive, I think, right? Who can explain this really quick or summarize the scenario?
So this is a scenario where the board is discussing summer school for the year ahead and different plans that the administration has brought to them for how to cover summer school. One is a basic plan, 4 different plans. One is a basic plan that is not as expensive. The second one is more expensive. The third has a higher level of involvement and better transportation. I think the second one had better transportation options too for the kids. The fourth one is an innovative new program that would be very expensive, but also very maybe transformative for it. The board member sticks to their guns basically and says, I've stuck with this plan and I'm going with it and I'm not going to compromise on that at all.
I want to say he in this case, right? He came to the meeting and said, I know,
Yep.
I've got my mind made up.
And
Heard
the
you.
other two had very good arguments, or 2 other board members had
There you
very
go.
good arguments for the more expensive plans than what he was proposing. So,
Heard additional information, but said, nope, I came into the room saying I'm going to vote this way, and so voted that way.
Yeah.
So what about that made this person a terrible board member, and according to the?
So the
according
only
to
thing that
law?
one of the things I
Yeah.
underlined that I thought was interesting, that compromising does not mean you're giving up on your goals or you're giving up on your principles. It just means you're meeting each other in the middle.
Sure.
And that's what we do. That's what we do on the board, and that's what we do as people. We compromise all the time, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's well said. One of the things that I highlighted was when decisiveness turns to intransigence, you become a terrible board member. If you decide, no matter what, I'm voting this way. It doesn't matter what Stan has to say. Yeah, he made some good points, and he's a good guy, but I came into the room knowing I was going to do this, and I'm going to do that. That's probably not your best move. And Jane, you're exactly right. There are situations in which what was essentially the recommendation here that you look for? Well, there are 2 or 3 options,
I
right?
thought the
Yeah,
one was really good.
3 options.
I thought option 4 was really good because they were actually trying to incorporate Plan 2 and Plan
Yep.
4. Let's find a way we can meet in the middle and have the best of both, which I thought that made total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me a little bit of when we were looking at different restructuring plans for the district. We had, 2 or 3 plans out there, and Jen were part of a group who came and said, hey, how about elements of this plan and elements of that plan? And everybody said, wow, that's pretty brilliant. I think we ended up going that
I
direction.
think it's hard when you're presented with 4 plans because you feel
Sure.
like you don't have any other options. And so
Okay,
then
yeah.
we kind of stop thinking outside of just those 4 options, and so I think it's important that we keep communicating so that we can come up with maybe the best of both worlds, and it could end up being even better than Plan 2 or Plan 4.
There you go. Great. Any other thoughts about this one?
the one thing I think of, somebody told me during the election season was, and I think it applies to board work too, is that your goal is not to have perfection. It's like riding a bus. You get on the bus that gets you closest to where you want to be.
Okay.
And it's not perfect. You may have to walk a little ways. You might have to, take another bus to another location to get you closer. But that's what in government and this type of work that we do, we're trying to get to the closest that we can to what most people need.
That's a good analogy.
And it's kind of like riding a bus. So,
I like Uber. I'll take an Uber. Get me
Yeah.
right there.
Get you right where you want to be.
No, that's a
Right to
great,
the door.
that's a great analogy.
Those of us who were following the state budget negotiations found, initially people were not
yeah.
willing to negotiate, but the last minute they did, and probably nobody got exactly what they wanted out
Right.
of that, right? But like Jane said, people held to the principles that were most important to them and pulled in ideas from other people and came up with something that was reasonable enough for everybody. Okay.
All right, perfect, great timing. Okay, we're gonna go right into our board meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 1st, 2025 PUSD Governing Board meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Brett, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item 4, approval of minutes. I'll take a motion to, moving item 3. Thanks, Sarah. Motion to approve the agenda. Any changes to that?
So moved.
Motion, do we have any second?
I will second that.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Moving on to item 4. Motion to approve the minutes from the study session, book study, and regular study and voting session meetings of June 17th, 2025. Can we get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 5A, Prescott Unified School District Education Foundation update. Dave Clever and Paul Kirchgraber.
Fantastic.
Hello, everyone. Board members, Mr. Superintendent, staff, and members of the audience, thank you for having us. My name is Dave Clever. I'm the current president of the PUSD Education Foundation, and I'm here with Paul Kirchgraber, our executive director, and we're here to give you an annual update. So I hope I get this right. There we go. So I want to start off with, we've been around for 10 years. So it's our 10-year anniversary. Thank you. And I want to point out somebody in that original picture, one of our founding members, Ms. Bergamini. And you were on the foundation for 8 years, or something, like a long time.
6 years from when we officially became a foundation.
Yeah.
So there was lots of time before that
You were there
where
for
we
the
were
runway leading up.
Yes.
forming the foundation,
Yeah.
but 6 years of board service. Yeah.
So that was something, a blast from the past, that we dug up and thought we'd
That's
appreciate
funny.
that. So, but also, Mr. Galagowski you were one of the originals too.
Right after, probably
Right
this
after that picture was taken, yeah.
Joe Howard
so.
came to us and said there's not enough dudes on the foundation.
That was so true.
That's what he
We were a very mom-heavy organization in the beginning.
And I also need to give a shout out to Ms. Robinson, who's still on the board.
Still on the board.
And I think you came on right when I came on, which is like 9 years ago or a long time
Gosh.
ago, yeah.
Right after I retired. 6, 7?
It's been a while, so. But anyway, so continuing on. So last fiscal year, we contributed $147,000 to the district. And I'm going to talk about some of the major projects we sponsored, and then Paul will cover some of our annual ongoing support that we do. So one of the big ones, the district came to us and said, we need help with hiring and retaining middle school math teachers. So we came up with a $35,000 supplement. So hopefully it's helping out. We'll find out, but it's something we're going to continue to support as needed. Another big project was Mile High Middle School, new desks. We helped fund it. We didn't pay for the whole thing, but I think it was a substantial part of it. Mr. Superintendent, feel free to chime in if you'd like to. But this is a before picture. These were the original desks, and I think they go back to the 80s.
I was going to say they look like the desks I sat in at.
Yeah, that's the comment we
I
have
think I sat
from,
in that one right there.
I think some of the teachers at Mile High sat in those original desks, so, but it's not only just the quality of the furniture, but the fact that the new ones are a lot more flexible. You can arrange them, the seats are separate. You won't gouge yourself on exposed metal frames like the old ones. And you can see one here that you could write on them. So I was in there and the kids were actually doing solving problems on the desk, so they're erasable.
Well,
And
just to be
and-
clear, we could write on them before.
And carve on them with a bucket
Hey,
knife.
or carve on them, yes, right? You can carve on them.
Yes.
You can also see how they can arrange them for collaborate, like group exercises. So, and one of the teachers I spoke with said that they just love it. She says other teachers are jealous that she has these. So, but also we also have the group activity tables, which are also wheelchair accessible now, which was not the case before. So, it's been a great impact, and we're proud to have helped with that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Paul, who's going to talk about some of our ongoing support for the district. So, Mr. Kirchgrave? We didn't rehearse this.
No, we have,
On your blocking.
and Jane, jump in. I'm
You'll do
sure
fine.
you will. I'm doing
Do
fine.
you know a little bit about this?
I mean-
A little bit.
This is the right trend line. I mean, we began at a point in time when Jane and Carol introduced the idea of a teacher's closet, giving free essential classroom supplies to teachers and helping them not go to Walmart and pull money out of their own pocket. So actually, it started before this fiscal year. This is when we really began tracking data. And you can see every year we've increased the number of teachers who have come into the teacher's closet. And it's a little misleading, it's underreported.
Yep.
Jane and I feel that it probably, you can add a factor to this number, because a lot of teachers will pick up supplies for their other teachers, because the teacher can't make it to the supply closet. So we know these are underreported. We're going to start tracking, this year, we're going to start tracking those teachers that are also picking up supplies for their colleagues. And the other thing about this number is, think about the force multiplier. For every teacher who comes in to pick up supplies for their class, they're impacting 30 students. And that's just one class, the next class. I mean, so.
If they work at the high school, they're impacting 160 students.
There you go. And with that, costs to operate the teacher's closet, and we're excited about that. We are glad to see costs go up, because that means that we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing. It's a huge bump this year, and we think that that's because not only the number of teacher visits, but that factor that they're also providing pickup, duty for their colleagues, is driving that number up. Out of the $16,000 that we have spent, we raised $14,000. We get tremendous community support for this project. It's very visible, and people want to support it. Foundations, individuals, small businesses, and so we're really thankful. We see this number going up, frankly, because we want to make sure that no teacher or staff person has to go to Walmart to buy stuff. I mean, that really is the function of what we do.
How much are you getting donated?
Well,
Laszlo?
I was going to mention one factor where the 16,000 is what we actually spent money-wise, financially. We get donations from this incredible community. We have real estate offices going out of business. They will call me and say, do you want all of our supplies that are left over? We had even a bank going out of business called, said, do you want all of our supplies? We're moving out, we need help. So I would say retired teachers, people who have tremendous number of art supplies, don't know what to do with them. So we end up, the colleges in the district or the county got together a few months ago, and the art teachers, and sort of did a swap. And whatever they didn't want, they contacted us and said, do you want everything we weren't able to use? So it's a huge part.
Don't you have some Embry-Riddle
Absolutely.
students as well?
We do. We have Embry-Riddle students. They're so cute. They're very cute, Andy. They, at the end, twice a year, at the end of their semester, we have a gal who's now moved on. She's graduated, but her boyfriend's taking over, who goes around and gathers supplies that the students haven't used that they might want to donate to the teacher's closet. And sometimes we get wonderful things, and sometimes we just get cute little things, like little butterflies, and just fun little things, or a bag of partially used pencils, just.
Nice.
But the thought is there. It's just amazing because they think about it. So this is the third year, I believe, that we're still working with Embry-Riddle, and even though she's moved on, she's passing the baton on to another person at Embry-Riddle who will take over. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I have to mention that as we've grown here, we have also expanded our physical space.
Oh, we have indeed.
You need to come and see this place. It's affordable. We started with a third affordable, then we.
Didn't we start with an actual
We
closet?
started with a
We started with an
closet,
actual closet.
like a broom closet over at the
But,
district office.
Unfortunately, the school district has been so gracious to let us move into the affordable, and now we just have incredible room. Yeah. I believe, now, this is a point of pride for the school district and us. It really is. There is no other school in the state of Arizona that I can find that operates a teacher supply closet in this fashion. Mesa has sort of a kind of place where teachers can check things out. There's one of the Phoenix Unified School Districts. They have something that it's not volunteer run. It's not supported by the community. It's just this is a unique animal. It really is. Yeah. We're really lucky this year that we have been the fiduciary for the Prescott Kids project. Started maybe a year and a half ago by getting grant money from Arizona Community Foundation, in which we then support the expenses of the Prescott Kids project. Well, this year, an estate, I think it was already mentioned once earlier in the board meeting, a woman had donated $266,000, a total of $266,000, to fund the Prescott Hooter Kids project. What that meant was we were able to uncouple from Arizona Community Foundation the money that they were sending to help pay for this. And now we basically can self-fund this probably for the next 8 to 10 years. We have approximately 100 kids that we
Don't remember the latest number, Sarah.
I bet Sarah knows.
75 to 100, it varies. But
yeah, that volunteers get together and they prepare weekend lunches. And then they take them in their cars and they disperse to all the schools. And Thursday, Friday, deliver it. So this is now one of the, as I said, we've taken over the fiduciary responsibility for that. How do we raise our money? We have familiar with our gala, the Sip and Savor we had last year at the club. Raised a total of $75,000. We also do the Whiskey Off-Road Beer Garden, which many of you are involved with intimately. You missed it.
In more ways
Jim.
than one.
Oh, I tell you, we missed you.
I know, I couldn't believe we planned a vacation over the Whiskey Off-Road, that was crazy.
Me neither, Jim.
We will be back.
Do I understand correctly, you refuse sales to the biker who's second
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the right?
yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Very legit.
Yeah,
When
we
she
have
came
a
to the
few
beer
little
garden, you
spots.
said, now come back in 15 years.
She did not get a finisher.
One of our best, most funnest, event is the Rising Stars program, and you'll know that. You've been to it. It was exciting this year. This young man
Cameron.
was surprised by his brothers who came,
So sweet.
who are in the Marine Corps, and came in full dress blues to the event. And it was just a special, it was kind of a goosebumps moment. It really was. It was
So
really
sweet.
fun. And just a program that got started, and we're so proud to be a part of it. And again, nothing like that in school districts around the state. We gave 3 scholarships this year, and helped Prescott High School's three young ladies on their way to higher education. We support the Family Enrichment Center. I'm sorry, Family Resource Center. Get my colleges mixed up. We do stuff supporting the Wellness Fair. We also are a contributor to the Shop with Arizona Ranger program, which gives gift cards to Walmart, $100 gift cards that the Rangers then will take the family out to go shopping at Walmart and pick up essential items. I mean, they're you know, it's underwear, it's socks, it's maybe a new coat. And the amazing thing, and maybe I've told the story before, one that Ranger takes the family and they go to the checkout counter. They've got a $100 gift card for each of the kids that are there. When the total exceeds $100 in terms of what they're buying, Brett, what do you think they do? What's that Ranger do?
Probably pulls out his own credit card.
You betcha.
Bingo.
It's amazing, and make sure that those kids, that family, has what they need when they leave Walmart. Again, the unique part of this program, unlike others like Shop with a Cop, is that only does it during Thanksgiving or only Christmas. This is year round. This really gets, it really touches the kids that we have in the school district.
And your relationship right with the Rangers help at the beer garden too, and so
Yeah,
that
they
covers a
do.
cost. And,
Yes.
yeah.
And for our first couple years of doing the beer garden, we didn't have the Rangers, and we paid a lot of money to have the security. And when the Rangers came forward and said, "We'll just do that," I mean, it was
Unbelievable.
unbelievable how it affected our bottom line.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
Just shows your collaboration with the community. That
Yeah.
It's
There you go.
unbelievable.
Yeah, in fact, some of those people, some of the Rangers that were there for the beer garden were actually ones that went to Walmart and just, they
Dang.
love it. They love it.
It's great.
We do a lot of other little things to support the school district and classes. You know, the parade, the Halloween parade, the Christmas choir. You know, we'll pay the activity fee, the event fees, so that the teacher doesn't have to pull money out of her pocket or a small stash of money that the principal has. Got a call from the 5th grade camp program. They needed sunscreen. They tell kids bring sunscreen. They know it. And so I got a call, and we bought them 100 bottles worth of sunscreen. It's the little stuff that goes kind of unnoticed, but it's important in terms of how the foundation supports, in little ways. And we buy gravel. Yeah, and the Food Forest has got a brand new gravel path, thanks to the foundation. And we provide gift cards for our years of service, our staff awards. It's important that, and the reason the Desert Financial logo is here is they've been an incredible supporter of this program to help us with supplying gift cards. We give restaurant cards from the Vively group, which I love because there's 4 restaurants in the Vively
Yeah.
group?
Yes, 5 now. 4 or 5.
5? Yeah, and so they can use the gift card in any of them or all of them.
And it's locally owned and not just a big
Yes.
chain, so it's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn this over to David Clever, who's going to answer all of your questions.
So, seriously, do you have any questions?
Are we still doing grants, specific, the innovative grants, and doing the delivery of those grants like we did on the bus and the band and all the things?
No,
Does that
we-
still happen?
We switched over to basically funding site grants, which is the
Okay.
example of the desks. And,
Okay.
and I figure we do a much larger project. We weren't getting a lot of traction towards the end for the teacher grants.
Oh,
So we just decided to brainstorm and see where else we can be more effective, so,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that you really listen to it, because it's, the grants is a lot of time and effort from the foundation as well, and you know, they're always kind of went away with not everybody received the grant, you know, and the teachers put a lot of time and effort into it, and they got enough on their plate to actually put in a grant application, have it kind of scrutinized the whole ways.
I might add just a touch to that. With the psych grants, it's a whole school decision. The school gets together and decides as a faculty what would they most like to see. Our first psych grant cycle began with the high school, and they made improvements to the library, which is now tough to get into at lunchtime. Whereas it used to be a dark, empty space, and now you can barely get in at lunchtime. The kids just go in
Yeah, I've seen
and
the
hang out.
library.
It's amazing. And then the second one was for the furniture at Mile High, and then Granite's on for next year. But I like the fact that all the teachers have a say-so in what's going to happen at their school. So they all have a vested interest.
Well done.
Mr. President, I don't want to take any more time, but I do want to share this great piece of news. For those of you who've been around for a while, you may be aware of the Arizona Community Foundation's Joy of Giving event. Anybody been there before? It's held up at the resort, 300 people. These are business leaders, community leaders, they're nonprofit leaders throughout Yavapai County. And it is an event to you really congratulate and share philanthropic spirit. A philanthropist of the year is selected, an organization of the year is selected. And what they also do is out of the hundreds of applications for grants that they receive each year, they pick 3 nonprofit organizations to be shining stars. And those organizations get a chance to present why they're a shining star to a huge banquet room. And guess who gets to do that this year?
Dang. Congrats.
Wrong player.
Yeah.
The Education Foundation was selected out of all those grant proposals as one of the shining stars. And we are so excited. It reinforces our motto for the 10-year anniversary about making an impact. The community recognizes that. You don't get picked for that because you're just standing around doing nothing. The community understands that the foundation has made a great impact on not only the community, the school, the students. The event is August 8th. I'm inviting all of you to attend, to support us, to support our schools. It's $60 per ticket. You can buy a table for $450. And what we want to do is just the registration is just gone live. And I'll send you the link. It's Friday afternoon, 11:30 to 1. And I think if you've never been to this before, you'll be just so impressed at what this community does in terms of philanthropy and giving. So,
That's exciting.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks for
Thank
keeping
you
it
for
going
having
and
us.
keeping it
And
strong. Yeah,
again,
Dave.
happy birthday, Mr. Superintendent.
No, Dave, I really, and Paul, thanks for keeping it strong, taking it in higher directions. And when
Yeah.
did you reach, what was the monetary milestone you reached this year or last year?
Well, we're over $1 million now,
Over $1 million?
Yeah, over $1 million.
We're bumping up to
Yeah.
closer to 2.
To 2, yeah.
Unbelievable. In 10 years. I can remember when Jed was coming back and you guys had gone out to Texas and you were talking about, we want to be that school that everybody talks about, or school district that everybody talks about. And there were schools from Texas and all this other stuff. And man, you guys all accomplished it. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Well done.
Thank you for all your support too. So,
Thank you.
all right, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item 6A, summary of current events. Mr. Tenney.
Okay, super. I just want to, again, tell Paul and Dave, thank you so much, and all of the people who've been involved over the years. I'm embarrassed when Paul says, or when I hear people say things like, "Oh, the district's been so good to us. Instead of a closet, we have half a portable now." I'm like, are you kidding me? These people have given thousands and thousands of hours and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars toward our district. It touches my heart, and every time I'm together with the people who have volunteered and been a part of that in the past or currently are, it just fills my heart. Thank you for everything you've done. There's a number of people here who've been instrumental in that over the years, and I appreciate it and love you. Thank you. All right. I don't have much at all. We just met 2 weeks ago. We're in the middle of summer. So, but one thing I will share with you is that the preliminary data for school letter grades, you know how the State Board of Education has decided that everything that a school does over the course of an entire year can be distilled down to a single letter. That notion's pretty ridiculous. And when it doesn't play in a school's favor or a district's favor, it's even more ridiculous. But we've been fortunate over the last few years. It's largely played in our favor. You know, this last year, well, 2 years ago, we were an A district. We had 4 of our 6 schools that were A's and 2 B's, and that's just fantastic. This last year, Mile High particularly sagged down a little bit. Abijah did as well. We've got the preliminary data back. We can't share it publicly yet, so I won't give specifics, but it's very good. We're really happy. I guess I can say this, the preliminary data shows that, well, the State Board of Education still has to meet and set their scale for what's going to be an A and what's going to be a B and whatnot, but we've got our points. Districts and schools are still at liberty to share, that they think a calculation error was made or whatnot, so there's still pieces of that to be done on the part of districts. The State Board of Education is going to set the scale, but the last several years in a row, they've kept the same scale. And we have no reason to think that won't be the case this year. If that's the case, we came out looking really pretty good. And I'll share some more details with you in my board report later this week. But I can share publicly we're really pleased with the early returns. So that's a good thing. And that's all I have for current events. Thanks.
All right. Moving on to 6A2, governing board members. Brett.
I don't have any,
Any
two
O?
things. One thing was, I was on KYCA with the superintendent yesterday.
All right.
I'm pretty confident nobody except Sonia Tenney was listening, but
No, I have a friend that always listens.
it was a good experience, and she gave me some good feedback, and I appreciated that opportunity, and enjoyed visiting with Clark about school things on the air. And then I guess this is not super relevant, but I was really impressed with the process for the superintendent's evaluation. And I whispered to Jen last meeting, I was like, this is crazy. Like, why would you subject yourself to something like that? I mean, why would you have to go through this process? And she says, have you ever done that? Had a survey? And I said, no way, nor would I ever think of doing it. And on my way home, I thought, you know what? That was a terrible way to respond. And I sent out a survey to 25 people on payroll at my business and got some really good feedback. Identified some areas for growth, which I really appreciated. So thank you, Jen. And thank you, Clark, for going through that painful process and letting us evaluate you and watch the whole thing. It was there were some things that hurt a little bit going over that, and some things that I felt good about. And so I guess that's tangential to really what we're doing here today. But thank you for that example, and thank you for the encouragement. And I'm going to try to be a better boss.
Yeah, good for you.
Nice.
That's awesome. Good stuff.
That's all I have for current events.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Jen.
I don't have any current events since 2 weeks ago. I don't think I did anything really or went anywhere.
Nothing, no.
I have nothing.
Andy. No current events.
No.
My hawks are growing.
First
so
hawks.
that's
Nice.
pretty nice.
All right.
Yeah. Awesome. That's it.
I have nothing either. I've been in contact with one constituent who wants to talk about our curriculums, but we haven't had a chance to meet yet. So when we do, I will pass on that info.
Nice. And I just have a plug really for the Kitty Day Parade Friday. So
Oh, yeah.
we made our float. It's the first time we've ever done it. It wasn't the night
great,
before, so I'm
great.
pretty dang happy about it. Yeah. Okay. Good deal. That's to the Kiwanis, and I know we have
Yeah.
flyers up there.
I guess I do have one other thing. I shouldn't be looking at my phone during the meeting, but I just got an article, newsflash, Trump administration withholds nearly $7 billion for schools. with little explanation. So the money which was allocated by Congress helps pay for after-school programs, support for students learning English, teacher training, and other services. So we'll see what impact that has on the grants that we receive from the federal government. And I'll report back to you as soon as we have specifics.
All right, item 6B, community comments shared with the governing board. Brett?
I have nothing.
Neither.
Nope. In the
Not enough,
process.
not enough time.
We should have meetings every 2 weeks. This is fantastic.
Look at how fast we go.
All right, good. Moving on to item 7A, consent agenda. Are there any items that we would like pulled or highlighted?
I would like to pull 7A2
Okay,
for donations so they can be recognized independently.
all right. Any other items?
I just had a question. Is the consent agenda all of 7A?
It is, yes.
Each of the items under 7A, yeah.
Yeah, there's, looks like there's 8
8.
tonight.
Okay.
Good question. I had the same one. earlier.
Okay, so Jane, you want to?
All right, yes, I would just like to highlight our donations from this past June. First one was I didn't even know about, a donation from the foundation, a check for $5,000 to Mile High for its STEM program. I did not know that, so that's cool. And the second one and last one is a donation from Jessica Hoxie, donation in the amount of $500 to pay off the overdue lunch accounts. And they step up to the plate and do that for our kids who have a balance still in their lunch programs. It's pretty.
Does she do that every year or
She
something?
just started a couple years ago, I believe.
I can't
I don't
remember if
know.
it was the same person or not, but you recall
Sure,
that
we had one earlier.
about,
Yeah.
4 months ago, something
Yep.
like that, there was a couple in town who asked,
Is it the same lady or no?
there you go. And it's different folks each time, yes?
All three, yes. We even had, and the other third was, someone was speaking at, I think it was an Arizona School Board Association, and they give $1,000 to a cause for the speakers, and he picked PUSD for over lunch
That's great.
negative balances, so.
That's amazing.
I just tangentially had somebody reach out to me this week asking about that. I said, that is fantastic. We have people all the time. Just for whatever it's worth, if a family, excuse me, is in pretty serious financial straits, they qualify for free lunch. If they're in kind of a moderate income level, they qualify for reduced lunch. And the state, the last few years, including this most recently passed budget, supplements the difference between those. So anybody who qualifies under the federal regulations for free lunch or reduced lunch gets lunch for free. So it's really only families who have not been shown to have a financial need, who fall behind, who benefit from this. And I mentioned to the person who was interested in doing this, we actually have a lot of people who step up. It's a cool thing. It shows just a great heart. We love this. If you're looking to make the biggest impact, you could donate specifically to that, and we'll keep it in an account until there's a need. We'll use that, absolutely. Or you might want to consider, we have families all the time who are in that kind of free and reduced lunch financial situation who have fees that they need to pay for their child's going to run cross country, or they're going to be in the band, or they have a science lab fee, or whatever it is. And if they can't pay for that, the district will pay that on their behalf. And it just eats into our operations budget. And if you wanted to pay toward helping families in need and wanted to make a donation toward that, that's even more impactful probably overall, and helps the district's operations budget as well. And the person was really pleased to hear that. And I think we'll probably end up doing that. Either way, whatever people want to give, we can make good use of it and help kids. It's wonderful.
What was the term that our food services used last week or 2 weeks ago? That was like, that the food is, like, they don't feel embarrassed by what they're
Use
eating.
the word
Do you remember that?
With dignity, yeah.
Dignity,
Something
with
about
dignity.
food with dignity or eat
Yeah.
with dignity.
So you don't even know, because you have a salad bar, you have all the kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff. So that's, wow. Thanks for everything around that. It's amazing. All right.
President Golgowski, can I pull one other
Yeah.
item?
Yep.
I just want some clarification on 7A3, ratifying the vouchers. It's on page 32 of our packet.
Yeah.
I just wanted some clarification on, there's, I guess, 4 checks there, and doesn't have any notes there. Is there any, I assume that's payroll and other expenses, but
Yeah. Mr. Moore?
Brian, you're up.
Brian?
Okay, so every week we do accounts payable vouchers. We pay our vendors. Every 2 weeks we have payroll vouchers. And those vouchers actually take governing board signatures.
Okay.
Now, you voted last week on, in the consent agenda, an item that you do every beginning of every fiscal year in which we can run vouchers in between governing board and basically use the stamps that you have supplied your signature on. And so we do our accounts payables every week, we stamp, payroll every 2 weeks, stamp. The totality of those vouchers is what is presented in front of you. We had one time a governing board asked to have an itemized list of what all of that dollar amounts were.
Yeah.
And it was about, I think it was 300 or some pages, you know, a document that Sarah made into a PDF. And after 1 week, it was like, oh, we don't need that anymore. Yeah. So what you are doing in the consent agenda is approving those vouchers for between the governing board meetings in which we use your stamps so we can pay our vendors and our employees.
And these are things we've already approved ahead of time or through
It's
our yearly
normal
budget,
operating
part of the
business.
operating budget.
Part of that was our electric bill that we paid last week. You know, part of it was payroll. And the payroll and the AP, I believe they're separated. I'll look at my computer, but
Yep, they are
Yeah.
separate.
they are
Oh,
separated.
so AP stands for?
Accounts payable, it's basically paying vendors, and the payroll is payroll.
So PR is payroll and AP are vendors?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good
Appreciate that
clarification questions.
but very good, because it is something new. Well, it's not something new, but
New to me.
new to you. And if you ever would like to see the packet of all of those expenses and all of that, it's available in the business office, and or
Okay.
I can provide that every board meeting if you want. Just let me know.
Thank you.
I like that this now is part of public record, and any person in town or out of town who's interested in seeing specifically what was paid to who for what can come anytime and do
Get
that.
them about every 4 weeks. The last one was 5 years worth of accounts payable.
Public records request
Public
Brian's
record,
talking about,
5
yeah.
years worth of our records for what we paid out through accounts payable. That was fun.
And are these people that are typically critical of how we're spending the money, or they're?
It-
I mean,
It can be used for, if it's used for commercial in which they're getting profit off of the information, we can charge them, but usually it is, Sarah, what's the wording when, that we can't charge? It's for research purposes. So anyway, what they're actually doing with it, who knows? You know, but I just sent, you know, an Excel sheet with, I think it was 42,000 line items of paid POs for the last 5 years, and what they're going to do with it, I have no idea.
and does that take a lot of time for your office to put that together, or is it a pretty
Nah,
quick
well, I do it,
copy
and-
and paste, or?
I've been doing it long enough that I have a system, but if someone came in new, it can take a while.
We do put a fair amount of staff time, not nearly the extent on the city level or on the county level, but we do put a fair amount of staff time into public records requests. Most often, from the context, it's pretty clear that it's someone looking to target advertising
Yeah.
to companies or to us based on, you know, who we do business with.
Huh.
And so strictly speaking, is there a direct financial gain to them from that we can charge for? In most cases, no. And we're in a situation where we can ask, hey, is this for commercial purposes? And if they say no, that's the end of that discussion. We have to give it to them for free. If they say yes, then we can charge a nominal fee for that.
There's about 4 companies that regularly ask for purchasing information.
Yeah, they're looking to advertise, and they're getting data for their advertising, targeting.
Thank you
efforts.
for your patience with my questions. This is a lot
No,
different
they're
than
great
normal,
questions.
and so I'm learning. It's taken me some time. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A motion second.
I will second it.
Motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, consent agenda passes. Moving on to item 7B, public hearing. Do we have anybody as requested? No request to speak. We'll move on to item 7C, study and voting sessions. Do we have any requests there? So item 7C1, consider adopting the fiscal year 2026 expenditure budgets. Mr. Moore.
The document in front of you is exactly the same as 2 weeks ago, basically, except for on the cover sheet it says adopted rather than proposed. In fact, we can't change it because it gives the public the opportunity to talk to the budget if they choose, and we do a meeting notice so they know exactly when this meeting is. So unless you have any other questions that you thought of since the last meeting, this is still the preliminary budget forms because the state hadn't, I think they have now. Is that correct, Clark? They've passed the budget, governor has signed it.
Yep,
Yeah.
as of the 27th.
And I just saw, they just released the new forms that we're going to have to put them on, and in September, we'll bring back the budgets in the new forms with basically the same information. They did pass that free and reduced and district additional assistance. This year, we received about $190,000 of one-time money for fiscal year 25. I do believe that that was part of the budget for fiscal year 26 as well. And so on page 8, I believe it is, there'll be a line that shows what that amount is, but it hasn't been calculated on the district level yet, but I think it'll be a little bit over 200,000 for PUSD. So that will be in addition to what comes in forward to you in September. Otherwise, as presented.
Couple questions. Sorry I didn't ask you last week.
Okay.
2 weeks ago. So the budgeted carry forward, can you just clarify for me, is that new carry forward or is that what's existing already?
It depends on which one you're talking about.
The 2,252,000,
Let me quickly pull it up.
Which page are
in the agenda, it's page 60.
Which page?
Page 60 of the
Oh, it's,
board packet.
Got it.
Not sure what page of
the two, was it the 2,252,801?
Yes.
Okay. That is a projection of what our carry forward will be in 16 months.
Okay.
So they are adding that because before what they did was they said because our carry forward this year was I think 3.6 million, and I think it's going to be a little over 3 when we get done with the next 2 months of paying bills. But what they would have us do is take that carry forward and distribute it into all those categories above, which is inflating budgeted line item for instruction, let's just say, for non-special ed. It shows, whatever that is, well, I've distributed all the carry forward that we're not going to spend. So now they're saying, reasonably, what do you think the carry forward is going to be at the end of the upcoming fiscal year? Put it on there, and then you don't have to distribute it into the categories above. It's the reason why for this year only, because they show budgeted for last year, fiscal year 25, and budgeted for this year. All of the budgeted categories are all negative, like negative 14%. It's not that we're spending 14% less money. It's just we did not distribute that 2,252,000 into the categories. It's now pulled aside. They do that for M&O this year, for the Classroom Site Fund, which is the teacher Prop 301 money, and then also the DAA, the District Additional Assistance. So it's a crystal ball, best educated estimates on what our carry forward is going to be over a year from now.
Right.
And this is a new
First time.
feature this year. So Brian and I got together and we said, all right, for this category, what do we expect? And we made some calculations based on our best joint estimates.
Yeah, they're focusing on fund balances, and I believe it's my best estimate is it's to show that districts have money and that we're not as starving as we say we are, even though we're second to last funded in the United States. So they're having us highlight fund balances, and there's a new tab as of last year that's solely dedicated to fund balances for all of our accounts.
Yeah, carry forward kind of lends people to believe we have extra money.
Yeah.
We are just fiscally responsible in
which is
case
not
there's
true.
something like a pandemic
Right.
and we have a significantly loss of enrollments because we set the tax rate and then all of a sudden, current year funding says we have 200 kids less than we think we're going, show up. We
Or
better
if
have those in
vouchers
reserve,
become
so we're
universal
laying
and
off
100
people.
kids fewer show up, which
Yeah.
happened last year.
And that
So-
goes to the next question is,
Yes.
I know our ADM is projected to be 117.5 higher.
These
Is that a function of the special education and,
This, Brian mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but it's worth
yeah?
We will
because
re-informing the board.
yeah.
It's important.
So because the legislative body did not have the budget passed by the time we had to do this, the statutory 2% that a child is supposed to be increased every year could not be put on the preliminary budget forms.
Okay.
Problem with PUSD is all of our money, our DAA, our M&O, and transportation funds come from our taxpayers. So I had to artificially inflate how many students that we feel we're going to have, because when the new forms are presented to you and in September, it will increase by that 2%. And I will lower the students back, because ultimately with that 2%, we always budget in tax for about 30 more ADM than we had the previous year, just so that we're not undertaxing. Had I just put that 30 extra, we would have been $1 million plus short on our taxes, because these preliminary forms do not account for the increased child by 2%.
Because the legislature was behind their deadline for us to.
Yeah.
So in September, you'll see that
Present
number
the
come
budget.
down, but you'll see the ultimate amounts that we have for our M&O be stable. It's just that we're lowering the number of
Okay.
kids, because the number of kids is now increased by 2%.
Just so long as we're not going to face cuts in September when,
No,
Okay.
we could have 1,000 kids there extra, and our taxpayers would be very upset with us. It just sits in the treasurer's office as dead cash if we're not accurate. But that's the reason why there's more students, is because we can't account for how much the students now are worth, because the preliminary forms, we were told specifically, you cannot adjust how much that child is worth, even though once they pass the budget, it's going to be worth 2% more.
okay. I also want to be sure that the people that watch these things are not going to come back and say, you're declining, you told us you were having this many, and now it's, 300 less. You're a declining district, and I think we need to be on the record as saying, no, this was an accounting.
That's important, absolutely.
This was an accounting
It's
issue.
accounting procedure to make sure that we don't undertax or overtax our
Right,
citizens and get the
okay.
right amount that the legislature is ultimately going to allocate to our district.
Okay.
Our last year's ADM was 3,521
Yeah.
ADM. I would have, had the legislators passed everything, that would have been right around 3,550.
Okay.
But it is 3,618, so it is about 70 or so ADM more than what we would have, but that's because each child is worth less, because the
Right.
budget wasn't passed at the state level.
And-
And our tax rates are dependent upon it.
All right.
And to clarify again, I think we've shared this with the board, but if they're, both the people who are watching online will clarify for them as well, that ADM and enrollment are closely tied to each other, but they're not the same, right?
Right.
Our enrollment includes every kindergarten student who's only worth half an ADM, and every one of our preschool students who are worth no ADM unless they happen to be a special education student, et cetera. So we've got more students than that, even more than the procedurally inflated, temporarily inflated amount, but
Well, and 200 other districts did not have to do that, because when they put their new budget, they don't have a high enough valued property within their district, so they can't tax for their full budget amount. So it gets capped. It's the general fund that will pick up that excess
Those
when they put
equalization funds we
forward
talked about.
equalization payments. We don't get equalization, so we're only one of about 8 districts that had to do something like that. Well, I hope the other 7 did, because if they didn't, they're going to be undertaxing when they do the new forms.
which means they won't have enough money.
Right.
Yes.
And this nuance is important for us to know,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we may get people coming and saying,
Yeah.
why are you asking for more money all the time? Your numbers are dropping. Well, no, there's some accounting that needs to be taken into.
Yep, yep. Great questions.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll take a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2026 expenditure budget. Take a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, budget passes. Item 7C2, consider adopting the proposed changes to the initial salary placement tool and to increase existing employees in affected positions to match the salary placement. Andy.
All right, thank you. So as I'm sure you know, the board is responsible for approving our salary placement scales and our individual salaries for and pay rates. We did that back in March. I brought kind of the salary rates for everyone. However, we've had some changes to two positions that really caused me to look at those positions a little closer and compare them to some surrounding districts and realized in addition to the job responsibilities and the changes that went with those, our districts were significantly lower than some comparable districts. Those two positions are the district's benefits coordinator and the admin assistant to the governing board and superintendent. And so really, again, what started with a change for the admin assistant, you may recall, we had our marketing director resign, and we decided not to replace that position, but kind of split up her responsibilities, and many of them we did ask Sarah to take on. But again, that meant we were looking at that job responsibilities a little closer. And then also the other big change for the benefits coordinator is the insurance change that took place. We knew there would be some changes that came along with that. We realized there are some significant ones that are potentially longer term changes that are going to kind of fall on her plate. And so again, looking at that, comparing them to other districts, we realized we should bring to the board a proposed increase. For the benefits coordinator, you can see the change really increases it. We for classified positions like this, we have different levels. The benefits coordinator was a level 5. We're proposing to move it up to a level 7. And then for the admin assistant position, we increased the starting rate. With both of those, what we would do is we would take our existing employees and use this tool to determine their salary for this upcoming school year. Trying to avoid saying replace them, but we would use this to place them on this scale.
Can I ask
so any questions on that?
Yeah. And I've got a question. Can you tell us in rough terms, maybe you've got the figures in front of you, maybe you don't, how these two positions compared to our compared to Kirkland or to Mesa?
Right.
Because they're so different than us, but I think you compare to Humboldt and some other real similar districts.
Yeah.
How they compared or how they compare currently, I should say, and how they would compare if the board chooses to approve this tonight.
Yeah, to start with, who I'm comparing to. I have a handful of districts, both geographically that are similar, but also some that maybe around the state, but have similar situations, especially considering who's on an override and things like that. So similar districts that in general we are comparative to that I use. So for the benefits coordinator, I listed, we were starting, and again, this doesn't mean this is where our current benefits coordinator's salary or pay rate is, but our starting rate was $16.81, and by comparison, Humboldt was $18.40 an hour.
And in and out was $20.
What's that?
And in and out is $20.
Right, yeah. Geo Combs, another one that's pretty similar, usually is $19.35. So we were significantly lower than that. With the proposed change, as you might be able to see, the starting rate would jump up to $18.21. So we would definitely be back in that comparable range. There's always a little bit of an adjustment we want to look at, size of the district, things like that. So we understand sometimes when there's
maybe there's a reason why we're a little bit higher or lower, but in general, we felt that that level made the most sense for that position. For the admin assistant position, again, we used a salary placement rather than a pay rate, but what we were at is a starting range at $42,075, and Humboldt was 53, so almost $10,000 difference for a pretty similar position. Again, we looked at job responsibilities and things and realized that we are significantly lower. So with those types of reasons, we said, this is why we want to bring this to the board.
We don't like being behind for obvious reasons, but being way behind is a serious problem. So
But we're still behind the three that you're presenting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's starting, and now our
Right.
new classification starts at 48,294. Am I understanding that right?
You are correct, yes.
Okay.
Did they get the 3% too, or how does that, because we were last, what we approved, or how does that work in this
So
equation?
what we'll do is the 3% applies to current or existing employees, and what we do with the pay rate or the pay scales is increase it by half of that amount each year. So our existing employees are increasing at a faster pace than any new ones coming in. We're trying to avoid a new staff member coming in at a higher rate with the same level of experience and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, and this may not be appropriate for this discussion, but just curious on the pay scale for, that includes the superintendent board admin assistant.
Yeah.
Is that title appropriate, or should that be a director of something, of some way, especially with the new responsibilities that we've added? Is admin assistant the correct term that we want to use? And I don't know if this is a discussion that we should be having now on this item, but might be
Something
maybe
to look
something
at.
to consider.
We certainly, Sarah and I worked together on that, but actually not just looking at the money, the numbers, but the actual job responsibilities. We went through the job description,
Yeah.
made sure that what was there that no longer really applied was removed, and some of the new responsibilities, not just the ones relating to the marketing, but things that have kind of evolved over the years. We
Yeah.
made sure, but the title itself we did not discuss. So that's something maybe we should
Just a
look at.
thought,
You know,
maybe.
yeah.
there are exceptions to this, but generally speaking, the folks who have the title director in our district are people who have
Have the direct
employees under them.
reports. Yeah.
Right.
It is true that for many years when Mr. Howard was the superintendent, everybody referred to Sarah as the director of Joe. So, and that's probably the case these days. She's the director of Clark. So it's definitely that's definitely worth considering.
Yeah, I don't know if director is the right term, but it just stands out to me.
Okay. Czar. Yeah. Czar.
Zarina.
I think sometimes they can be elevated to like an administrative executive versus an administrative assistant
There you
from an
go.
aspect of having a more executive role in what you're doing for all of the people who have to make all the decisions.
Yeah.
We couldn't make those decisions without Sarah. That's what's true, is because we wouldn't know what we're doing
We would
without
come to
Sarah
a halt
telling us
without
all
Sarah.
the things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just like as other words that,
That's worth considering, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Executive
Executive assistant, executive officers, there's a lot of different terms we could consider. Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
I like this proposal. I mean, if it were up to me, it'd even be higher, but I'd pay Sarah more than I'd pay Clark if it were up to me, but I only have one vote.
That's fair.
And I think that just underlines the value that Sarah is to each one of us, and all she does to keep us informed and focused. And so I certainly appreciate her, and I support these recommendations.
Well said. Okay. All right. We'll take a motion to adopt the proposed changes to the initial salary placement tool and to increase existing employees in affected positions to match the salary placements.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, move forward. Item 7C3, consider approving the 2026-27 PUSD academic calendar.
All
Mr.
right.
Tenney.
Fantastic. I should have mentioned that outside of the meeting, I apologize. You've probably noticed that Ms. Secor is not with us tonight. She is on vacation with her family, which is something we highly encourage, especially in the summer. So she was worried about missing this board meeting. I said, I think we're going to be okay with that. Joe, why don't you go and just go be Kelsey for a while instead of Mrs. Secor. So we want to excuse her and wish her well in her travels. She has unfortunately been texting back and forth with us about a number of work things as she's been on the road, but because she's ultra responsible and terrific.
I hope she's watching.
Yeah, well, I doubt very seriously. If she's watching, we're going to have a little talk later on.
Can we
That's,
redact that from the minutes? I do not hope she's watching.
no, she's the greatest, and we wish her well. Last I checked in with her, she was in the Tetons hiking up there, and is moving up through Montana
That's a
next, and I
pretty
think up into
area.
Canada. So there you go. So last time that we met, a couple of weeks ago, we brought to you a calendar proposal, and this is the very same proposal with the typographical errors. Remember, there are I think two or maybe two typographical errors and one formatting adjustment that you asked us to make, and I think we've got them here. Sarah, do you mind kind of pointing out what we've got, or would you like me to? What works for you?
Either way, it's
She's an
Why don't you do it?
executive now, so she can.
Yeah.
We've added some new colors. So we have here for new staff orientation, we've changed it from the pre-service and the returning teachers. We moved the PD day from August 28th to September 4th.
Good.
And then on,
So there was no reason why you thought there was.
we couldn't
I think
find.
it just
No, yeah, we
looks
looked
the
back
same
there and
as
we said
last
that
year's.
that
If
was a
you look
miss
at
on our
it,
part. We're so glad you.
it was just our Labor Day moved out a week.
There you
right?
go.
So-
And then I adjusted everything on here to match what it shows on the front page of the calendar. Should I talk about
You can if you want. Just the other piece is, you may have noticed our previous calendars, the ones that we've had online, we've circled every other Friday. This is payday. That's an important piece of information for 400 of the 5,000 people who look at this calendar, but it's completely immaterial for the other 4,500 people. And kind of, we thought, is there a sort of an in-your-face element to this? Hey, payday, payday, payday. So we thought, let's have a version for our employees that has all the same information, reminds them, here's when your paycheck is coming. But the one that we post online for families and general use will
Doesn't need that.
remove that piece. So there's no content changes at all, but just a formatting change that way.
I like that personally.
I do
Yeah.
We all need to be paid, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to know.
No question about
It's
that.
still-
Yeah, we've decided we're still going to pay people this year, if that's all right. So the changes that you asked for, I think, are reflected in this.
It looks
They are.
great.
It does, it looks
Good.
great.
All right. Any questions, any more comments? All right, nope, great. Then we'll take a motion to approve the 2026-27 PUSD academic calendar.
I will make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, calendar passes. Item 7C4, consider approving the list of student fees and extracurricular activities for the 2025-26 school year. Mr. Moore.
It's unfortunate that we have to have a voting item about money that we're going to charge our kids because we're not funded to the level in which they don't have to pay. But it is necessary to bring any time that we're going to have a possibility that we're going to charge a student anything for a class, at the high school, an extracurricular activity that they participate in, sports, that the governing board approves it before we charge it. And so principals put together a comprehensive list of any scenario that they see that there will be a charge within the upcoming school year, puts it on this document and has you vote on it. An example like elementary for a field trip, Taylor Hicks has quite a bit of field trip money and tax credit. It is on there as a field trip possible charge, but they may not charge students anything because they have the tax credit money. But if something came up that was a little bit more expensive than what their funds would allow, and they wanted to charge, they would have to bring this back to the governing board before they collected any money for the student if they did not have it on the initial list at the beginning of the year for your votes. So the list is pretty comprehensive. If you have any questions about any of the charges, I'm here. to answer your questions.
And if it's all right, I'll underscore what I said earlier, which is if there's a family that comes to us and says, I just can't afford this,
Yep.
we always work with them. We talk first about, well, what amount could you afford? Or if we broke this into 4 payments over the course of the year, could you do that and whatnot? So we often find ourselves in a situation where somebody says, I can't pay the $30 lab fee for biology. We say, no problem, we'll eat that. And occasionally we'll get donations from community members specifically to that, but most often it just comes out of our operations budget. It means there's a little less money for other things available, but we never deny any student the opportunity to participate in a field trip or athletics or any of these things based on their ability to pay.
And actually, even the use of tax credit has a stipulation in there that if you use tax credit and there is a hardship, the district has to cover for that hardship if you're using tax credit and charging a student for portion of what that activity is. So there is always, and quite a few of these items, it is also delineated if a student qualifies for free or reduced. It's at a lower cost.
I'd just like to make a comment. It's unfortunate we don't have the money to cover this. On the other hand, $150 to play a sport, if I compare that to what my kids paid for camps this year, I mean, that's a really good value for their money. And so we appreciate, all of this and the fact that we can provide this for students who can't afford it. There's one topic I'd like to bring up that's a little bit tangential to this. When we were doing our listening tour, there was book fairs going on, and we were told that the kids that don't have money to buy books don't get to go to library that day because this is the face I wanted to see. But they said that the kids that didn't bring any money to buy a book didn't get to go to the library that day because the book fair was set up in the library. Only those that brought money got to go. So I don't know if that's true or not. You remember that conversation? That's what we were told. So it's bugged me ever since then, and I'm glad she showed that face because that's the same
I've been
thing.
gone for a while, out of the classroom, but,
So it might be
It
nice
also
to...
wasn't where you taught.
okay, because my recollection.
We're getting a little
is-
meaner every year though, so maybe.
Yeah.
My recollection is they all went to library.
I totally understand if you're not going to participate in the book fair, then maybe you don't get to go check out all the books that the library was kind of pushed back so that they could display for the book
Might
fair.
have been a little smaller library than what.
So there
we
might
were
be
used
a
to.
situation there where kids that don't have the money are feeling like they're not part of the special that week, and maybe we could look into that.
If you can share with me where that occurred, I can visit with the
absolutely.
principal about some way we can
I will
avoid
say
that.
too, I don't know if it's still buy one, get one free. Do you know if it is with the book
I think
fairs?
one book
book
fair a
fairs.
year is, and
Yeah,
then one book
because
fair
it was
isn't.
very interesting to see how some of the parents worked that out too, where you bought one book and the other was free, and it was quite often the free book went to a child who didn't
Yeah, we
have any money.
had a pretty good workaround
It was-
that
we
for
worked
that
around
when
that,
I was at
so
Budget. The principal is Jane
The
Nelson.
kids everybody got a book. But
Sorry,
they.
a little
no,
off topic
No, no,
there,
that's-
no,
but,
I
but
understand
That's
that
related to
totally.
what we're talking
it's been
about.
on my mind.
It's,
Absolutely.
I have a question. I agree with him about the sports. I mean, honestly, when you get your kid into high school sports, it's actually cheaper than having him in all the club sports that you've had him in all these years. So it's kind of a bonus. It could be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to pick them up and drive them, and they cost me less. But one of the things I'm just curious about is the inconsistency around which college class is charged what. So like Spanish 101 and 102 are $80, and English 101 and 102 is $35 plus the book. But I was just curious, like, what's the discrepancy? Because I feel like I'm charged the same fee for my dual enrollments. And, like, what about dual enrollments that aren't on the list? Is there also a Yavapai College fee? I don't know. I'm confused. I don't remember what I've paid in the past.
I don't believe, and I don't know if I want to be quoted on this, I don't believe when it comes to dual enrollment that we can charge a fee. I don't know.
I don't know.
Know that,
These
but
are dual enrollment.
I'm-
Like Spanish
to-
101 and 102.
I'm trying to
And
remember.
201 and
Brian,
202.
Most of the fees that are related to classes are for materials, and there's
Yes.
materials that get used in, so that's the difference between Spanish and English class. I'm confident about that. I can't remember if we actually recoup any of the tuition fees for dual enrollment. That's what Brian's
That's what I
talking about,
believe.
or not. I can't recall off the top of my head, Jen. We'll look into this and we'll get back with you and let you know.
Yeah, I was
If
just
part of that
curious.
fee goes toward their tuition costs at Yavapai College or not. I want to say Brian's right, none of that is for their tuition. That's why there's dual enrollment things that aren't on there at all, I believe.
Yeah.
It's actually just for materials for the class, things that they buy to enhance or make possible the learning, like lab materials and science and whatnot. I'm not sure what they buy in Spanish class, but they've.
Well, and when they do collect money, it goes into an auxiliary fund. Auxiliary is the fund that when money is collected for, and then it has a coding that is associated with the area in which it was collected. Doesn't have to be spent in that area, like gifts and donations and tax credit with a donor area, but the purchase orders that I see coming using those funds, it's all materials and things for the class, subscriptions if there's any software that goes along with the class, and it helps to pay for that.
Okay.
They do a Day of the Dead thing where they bring materials in and everybody decorates a skull, not like a real one, but paper mache, whatever. So that doesn't happen in English class, so there's a lower fee there. Probably there's maybe no materials at all for certain classes. So yeah, it's typically materials based if there's one class, that's more expensive than another. And I'll tell you as well, as a parent, I had a little bit of angst over this until I had some kids in high school and some kids in college. And so when I went and, my senior, they said, hey, it's $486 total. The previous year, I was like, oh my gosh. But then I had another kid who was at actually one of the least expensive private schools in the United States. It was costing me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to send that kid to school for a year. And I was like, this is the best value in the world. $486 to have my kid do all of these things, participate in these sports, and be in the marching band and whatnot. So you're exactly right. It kind of depends on how you look at it. But to be clear again, if there's a family that cannot pay, they do not pay. If there's families who say, I'm getting free everything else, I can step up and pay $150 for my kid to play football, then we have them participate that way with us.
And for the marching band, $400, that's probably the most expensive one on here. Is there a booster club that helps with that, and so it ends up being less, or is this $400 the maximum amount it would be, or?
It's kind of all the above. So there is a booster club. The marching band is just straight up expensive. Okay. Getting all those kids where they're going, whatnot. I just got the dry cleaning bill in my hand for their uniforms this year. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just to clean the uniforms at the end of the season, so it doesn't smell like the last guy. Which is probably important, but it's expensive. It's super expensive. So their uniforms, the repairs to uniforms, repairs to instruments. A sousaphone costs over $10,000, and so anytime somebody dings it or whatever, et cetera, all of those pieces, it's pretty expensive. And so there is a booster club that offsets a lot of their costs, but this is the part of the costs that aren't offset by that.
And if they are in marching band and they pay the $400, if they're part of one of the other performing jazz bands, or they
Orchestra or something,
they do not pay the other.
Okay. That's waived,
and that's,
the second one.
And it's waived because they're paying for the marching bands. And so that is to be noted.
I see that. Okay.
For community members that want to make a tax credit donation, say is it $450 or $400 per person?
400 per single,
200
yeah, 800 for, yeah.
Can they assign these to, so the graduation fee is a new fee. Could they say, here's $400, we want it to go as scholarships for the graduation fee for those seniors that can't afford the $25?
Would the new graduation fee be eligible for tax credit donations? There's a set of criteria that you have to meet, and Brian can tell you probably off the top of his head exactly what they are to make sure that something is eligible for tax credit. It has to be outside of class and not required for people.
Okay.
I'm thinking, you can see the wheels turning in Brian's head. Off the top of my head, I think it would be eligible.
I do believe that if someone wanted to give, I do believe that would be a tax credit eligible activity, because there are 7 criteria for tax credit. It's got to be for kids, given, if it's a hardship, waived.
Right.
But it's got to be an activity that's optional.
Right.
Participating in graduation is optional.
Yeah.
It has to be for non-credit. Their school's over, they're not earning a grade for graduating, walking across. So I actually think that it is a new fee on that list. I could justify that being a tax credit area that could be given.
And I'll just share with you really briefly the reason for the new fee. Adam talked with us and said, hey, this costs us thousands and thousands. Just renting the stage that you were sitting on, $2,000. The sound people, what was it this last year? thousands
Oh,
more
it is.
for that.
I think if I added
And we just
everything
eat
up,
that,
probably
we just
20
take it
grand
away
for
from every
graduation.
11th grader and every 3rd grader and every preschooler. So we said, hey, you know what, this is a pretty nice thing. A lot of places, graduation costs them tens of thousands of dollars, put it on like it does for us, and so people have to buy tickets to get in. We've said, we really don't want to go there. What if instead the people who are directly benefiting from this, we charge a nominal fee for that. The people who can't pay it, we'll pay it like we usually do, but the families just say, yeah, oh my gosh, for that great thing, I'll pay, what is 120, what's the graduation?
25.
Oh.
Yeah, no,
So I just did some math. 25 times 358 would be close to 9,200.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
number?
gonna pay maybe for half of
Yeah, that's
what
what
it
I
takes,
said.
and we'll
That's
take
what
the
I
rest from
covered.
11th graders and 3rd graders and what, like we've done for years. But it'll,
Specifically.
I'd like to take my board salary and donate it to the
oh,
graduation.
fantastic, actually, great.
I get a 5-0
Deal.
on that.
I'll match that donation, actually, so that,
I'll double it.
that's great. But anyhow, in lieu of charging for tickets and the difficulties around that, we just thought, hey, what if we charge a nominal fee? I hadn't realized it's so low, $25. You're right, Jane, that's not gonna bring in anywhere near what it costs to run graduation, but it'll help a little bit. And we wanna be clear for people as well, the fireworks that they do, that's not part of the cost to the district. The student council pays for that and whatnot. So,
That's a great touch.
I love that part of it now.
yeah, it's pretty neat. That's why I go.
All right, we'll take a motion to approve the list of student fees and extracurricular fees for the 2025-26 school year.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Passes. All right, moving on to item 7D1. Mr. Moore, as Chief Financial Officer, has prepared the school board's summary budget report for your review.
This will be the last time you see fiscal year 25's board review budget documents. So if you have any questions on this one, it's going once, going twice, and it'll be gone. Next governing board will be the first one for fiscal year 26. If you can see at the top, I think the M&O balance is like 3.1 or 3.2 million. Still has like 400 some thousand of encumbered. Just with this payroll on Friday, 200 some thousand of that encumbered will become expense. So that's the reason right around 3.2 or 3.3 million is what I think our carry forward will be, but we'll still pay bills all the way through August 30th for services rendered or products received before June 30th. And after August 30th, when I do my annual financial report, you'll know exactly what that carry forward is.
All right.
Okay.
Item 7D2, review the proposed changes to ASBA Policy Services Advisory Volume 37, Number 6 from May 2025. Andy.
All right. So this is a first read of 3 policy changes. I'll provide a quick summary here. One relates to essentially cell phone usage in our schools. One relates to mandatory reporting requirements. And the third one relates to student records. All 3 of these changes come from recent changes in legislation. Again, just kind of a quick overview of the cell phone changes. The legislation and the policy reflecting that talks about having limits on cell phone usage during the school day, which our schools already have that in place. But again, this has it now in policy. It does include some exceptions to that, including if a teacher provides guidance and wants it for educational use, obviously for emergency use, and if there was a medical need, for example, if a student was using it to check their blood sugar or something similar to that. There's guidance or essentially it says that there should be a policy in place for parents and students to communicate if they're obviously not allowed to use their cell phones. How do they communicate? And again, we have policies and practices in place. For the most part, it's to contact the office, and messages can be shared with students and shared with parents. There's a section in the policy on cell phones that says we have to notify parents yearly of the policies and any changes that take place. Again, that's already being done usually through our handbooks. And then that policy also just provides some specific definitions on what the school day means, what social media uses, and what is a wireless device. And so, any questions on that particular one yet? And again, you may not have had a chance to look over all this yet.
The only comment I had is just on page 84 of our whole entire board packet. Talked about inserting optional district language regarding additional district level. We haven't even
Correct.
talked about that yet.
We have not. I shared with you that we have, I'll say, more school-specific
Correct.
policies. The general feeling is those often change based on what the newest issues are that we're seeing. And so to have it, that is actually in a regulation, but still, we felt was better to not put it in regulation.
That makes sense to me.
But just have the more overarching goals in the policies and regulations. So not having anything more specific there. Okay. The next one
Does
related.
anybody have questions?
Oh,
with the
sorry.
cell-
Yeah, any
cell
others?
phone?
Anything else? We good?
I mean, I know that just under our policy, in reviewing what the recommendation is for this policy change and what our policy is ours is stricter,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
by far, than what we're required to do. So,
Right.
just in reviewing it. So thanks for sending that out.
Absolutely. In terms of the mandatory reporting policy and the changes there, one of the changes requires that board members and substitutes are now trained. For years and years, we've had all our teachers and anyone having regular contact with students be required to have a training on child abuse and mandatory reporting laws. But now they've added, like I said, board members and substitutes. Substitutes have already been receiving that through our third party, but now it'll be in policy. It does change, which I find a little bit interesting, but again, this is coming out of legislation. If there's a report to be made, it has to be made to essentially a police officer or directly to DCS. It cannot be made to an SRO, and I'm not sure why they did that, but that is what the law says.
Are all SROs in the state police officers? Like, are they all part of a police department, like ours are?
They don't have to be, they can be retired.
So maybe that's,
That's
Maybe
a
that could
relatively new
Maybe
piece, but
that's
yeah,
why.
maybe
I
that's
don't
a
know.
response to that.
because maybe they're not active duty police, like ours
Yeah,
are
it could be.
actual police
Right.
officers.
It
Correct, yeah.
prohibits us now, I mean, if that was what they were targeting specifically and solely, they could have written that language into it so that we could still go to Officer Holmes and say, hey, here's this situation. Can you go through that process for us, make sure it gets reported and whatnot? We're prohibited from doing that now. We have to go around him to the police department through their regular reporting or to DCS.
Well, you wonder, because it does say, like, when a report's received by a school resource officer or school safety officer, the officer shall immediately notify a law enforcement agency.
Right.
And he is the
Is
law
the
enforcement agency,
Yeah,
so
he
he's
can't
thus
be the guy though
notified.
anymore.
Can't
Right.
report to
Right.
himself.
It has to go immediately.
Which he
to-
probably already has policies and procedures
Absolutely.
around reporting everything that
Absolutely.
he takes in, just like all the other police officers would have. You know what I mean? Like, nothing, they don't keep it all to
Yeah.
themselves. They have
Right.
policies and procedures for how they report
And
things.
depending
So
on what the situation is.
It's interesting. Okay.
Mandatory reporting, there's little to no investigation has been done before the
Mm-hmm.
report is made. I have reasonable suspicion that there may be neglect or abuse of this child. You need to report to DCS or the police officer. The police officer in the past could begin an investigation, and if he or she found something that rose to the level, yeah, absolutely, we need to pursue this, they would do that. If they thought, no, that is no longer a thing. They have to immediately report to the police department, who has to go from there. Why exactly? It's beyond me. I can't put my finger on how that would be beneficial in most cases. But either way, we're happy to continue to follow up. Most of the things that come to the legislature to us, like the cell phone policy, Stan's exactly right. We already have that in place. Most of the things that say, now you have to do this, we've been doing that for 6 years. This one's new. We'll have to adjust a little bit.
And it makes me wonder if, making I'm not opposed to school board members being mandatory reporters, but wouldn't that also lead us to being fingerprinted and have fingerprint cards on file, passing background checks? You know, and there have been people that have run for this school board that probably couldn't pass a background check.
That's very possible.
You know, it doesn't seem like they've thought through everything that they need to think through
This might
with
as well.
this.
Yeah, that
with
piece
this
is not part of
statute.
this current legislation, but yeah, I think the thought with board members being mandatory reporters is that you are in a position, you may have enough interface with students and whatnot, you might come upon a situation where you feel like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
this could be neglect or abuse, and they don't want you to be passing that off to somebody else or just keeping it to yourself.
Yeah.
They're saying, by law, you must now report that.
And I think with that, then it's, the school district should require board members to have a background check, be fingerprinted. I think if you're gonna ask us to have that responsibility, then I think it should be part of what, like.
I
an
don't know, you all
employee
seem
has.
real nice to me. I'll vouch for you. Yeah, those are good thoughts.
The last section relating to student records, you know, many of you are familiar with FERPA, but basically federal guidelines around what information can be shared in the process for you know, going to allowing parents to opt out of having certain information shared. There's certain information known as directory information that the districts and schools can share without direct consent, and this adjusts that somewhat. We did have our attorney look over our current policies and make sure our notification of what is included in that is up to date. So again, happy to answer more questions on that, but it's a pretty in-depth, but again, I feel like we're in pretty good condition already, and don't think we'll have to make any major adjustments. All right, well, again, that was the first read, so if you have, as you dig through it, and if you see anything you have more questions on, please let me know.
So that'll be on the next agenda, right, Adam?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So you've got at least a month to process that, ask questions if you're curious about things, and then we'll bring it back, and if you feel like you need more time, great. Or you could just abstain, but we found out earlier. So,
All right, moving on to item 73, policy provider discussion. Mr. Binder again.
All right. You may recall that several months ago, we came to the board and shared that we were considering, or we were looking at both the ASBA policy advisory organization and also the trust policy advisory, and had both groups come and present to the board. And really at this point, we're just kind of looking for some, you can kind of hear some discussion around where the board feels they're at, and to hear some kind of guidance and direction on what you'd like us as the administration to do next, if anything. And if, you know, if you feel we should just stay right as is, okay. And if we feel like we should dig in and look at the trust policies a little bit more, we can do that. But really, we're just looking for some discussion to see where you're at after hearing those presentations.
I'm personally apt to giving the trust. I like what they present. I like the numerical way that they present it. I like how you presented what you all found out about it after digging in Q compared, and the fact that it's accessible, it's easier to find and research, and you know, from your perspective, to me it feels, and the cost to it is not much at all in what we're using for ASBA anyway. I think that simultaneously, just to kind of give it a shot for this next year, and you kind of have the support of both, because Paul's just, to me, it just makes sense to kind of use it, try it out. If it's something that you bring to us later on, you know, we can pick the one or the other, but to go whole hog right now is kind of, it might be a difficult shift from everything that we've already lined up within our policies. That's just what I'm feeling.
if you do decide you want us to shift, I think what I'm picking up and what you're saying, Stan, excuse me, if you do decide you want us to shift, giving us several months of runway to do that appropriately is a good plan.
Well, I have concerns with the trust. I don't believe their policies are as comprehensive as what we have with ASBA. I think, sometimes you only find out you need a policy when something happens. And I think the trust lacks in that area. I think they hit the statutory requirements fine, but the things that may not be statutorily required, I'm not sure we've got. The one thing I am opposed to is their specificity in some of the policies, where in particular the inappropriate conduct between teachers and students. As soon as you start, it's kind of like what we discussed in those school-specific policies on cell phone usage. If you put that in policy, you're allowing someone to say, this isn't covered by your policy, so it is not prohibited. And I think we need to be very careful about that, because we could have situations like with the cell phone policy where it needs to change. We didn't have texting 20 years ago, and now this is a whole different ballgame. Now we're looking at restricting cell phones. I'm also concerned with that we get legal advice from the trust, and is this a conflict?
Conflict of interest.
If the lawyers we're using are part of the trust, are they?
Oh, Dave specifically.
Yeah, are they
on our council?
receiving additional financial benefit from us participating in the trust for policy services as well?
Good point.
I was also concerned with their presentation that they don't have full-time providers working on this, and as they're going out to schools and gathering more districts in place, what's the cost going to be down the road for us as they start to have to provide more and more to the districts they serve? So, ASBA provides a lot to us with our employee handbooks and those things. So those are my concerns. I understand the economics of it for sure, and I do appreciate that it would not be as expensive, but I am cautious, I guess, about those things. So that's where I'm sitting right now.
Well, it looks, your recommendation is that we stay with ASBA for the upcoming school year anyways, correct?
Yes, correct.
We're staying
So
with them,
I think
correct.
having.
And then that would give us more time to look into maybe some of your concerns more with the trust and dig a little bit deeper to see how they do align with our policies. I don't know, that seems like, as long as we don't jump ship yet.
You think they're pretty fledgling right now too? I just thought if they
Yeah,
just
I think-
started up.
I think they've just started up, and they, they've, as they grow, they're going to require more infrastructure. And I think they'll find, that they need to hire somebody that's going to be looking at this full time, to be managing those policy advisories that come out, to be watching statutory things that are changing on a regular basis and getting that information out in a timely fashion to the schools. Those are things that I'm not sure the planning is in place with the trust to do that at this point. So.
Remind me, what's the price difference?
The trust is $500 initial fee.
We've already paid that, actually. So there's an annual fee of how much, do you remember, Sarah, or Andy off the top of your head? $250.
Just being part of the trust, though.
No.
For this.
No,
Okay.
using their policy service, policy advisory service is a nominal fee. And what is it for ASBA again?
it's pretty-
Worth-
48.85.
Yeah.
What is that one?
Almost 5,000.
The policy services through ASPA, it's 4,885.
I would be interested to see, so like we just got 3 new policies from ASBA, essentially, correct? Like those came directly from ASBA.
Exactly.
Would we be able, since we've paid the $500, to have access to
See
what
what-
the trust would look like for the exact same policy changes that we're implementing right now? Because I think it would give us an idea of what would we expect to see
Compare.
from the trust.
It's a great idea.
That's a
Just
very
as
good
what
idea.
we see right now from ASBA, so that we can see, is it comparable? Do we feel like it's comprehensive enough? Do we, I agree with you about being a little bit concerned, but I also am a fan of simplicity. I think we can really overcomplicate things, and it can be even harder to understand and potentially harder to defend if it's, if there's more language than necessary in a policy. So I think I would like to see what the trust would look like. What did they send out to their people? And
About
were they
these new
proactive in sending that out to their people? Like, did they already get these changes? Just like, I feel like ASBA is very proactive, which is very helpful. And I love the emails that we get that tell us what's coming or what to even be on the lookout for, because this is what legislation is talking about. So we're very well informed, I feel like. So I love that about ASBA. I also like Policy Bridge because I like being able to see the policies of other school districts. There was one topic, I don't remember what it was, but we were having a discussion around it, and I was able to go look at other school districts' policies in other markets and look at like people who are in our same size, or what are other school districts doing and what are their policies around that issue. Oh, it was open. It was an open meeting, but it was
Public
participation.
comment. Yep.
and I looked at probably 20 different school districts' policies on Policy Bridge, which was just kind of cool to have access to that. You know what I mean? Where it was just easy to find. Even though it's not easy to find because of their lettering system, and that is stupid. Like, I do love I love this numbering system in the trust, so it's hard because there's like good and bad.
So, FYI, Sarah's just confirming for me that the trust has a similar access to Policy Bridge where you can look at each of the other. There's many fewer districts that.
Right, it's a smaller sample size.
There's only a few dozen, whereas it's
Right.
in the
Okay.
couple of hundreds.
And I can't speak to what it looks like from the actual policy changes, but I can for these three, for example. I also received an email that it gave a pretty good summary of each one, and they actually provided a webinar specifically about those three policies. So they actually sit down and explained what that means. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So from our proactive and making sure that they're a responsive standpoint, they were certainly on top of it, I should say.
You're exactly right. ASBA is super responsive. If we ever have a question, we get with them, they're right back with us. There's no question about that. And I want to be clear for the board that if you look at this, we're in, the administration is not making any recommendation to separate our membership from ASBA. Many of the things that you were just talking about, Jen, where they're sharing information with you about what this means and what's happening next and whatnot, that's part of our membership with ASBA. And where there's a district 15 miles from here that is talking about completely removing themselves from ASBA, I think that would be a foolish move on the part of the board. But I do think it's worth looking at the two different policy advisory services and seeing which one's going to serve our district better going forward. A lot of good discussion around that.
Your thoughts? All right.
So as far as direction then for us, I think I heard a couple of things, or maybe you can summarize for me either way.
Well, my direction was just basically, why don't we pay the money, right? We could still utilize their services. We could compare. I think, is that correct?
We can look at their policies. We can't use them as our policies,
Right.
of course,
Oh, yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
voted to use ASBA policies, and unless you have a majority vote to do something different next month, next year, 8 years from now, we will continue to use solely the ASBA policies. We have access to the trust policies.
Yeah.
We found specifically you mentioned earlier, Andy, the student and staff interaction piece. We found that the trust's coverage of that was inadequate for our purposes. We had a couple of different instances where we weren't specific enough and teachers had strayed into an area that was clearly pretty gray. We reached out to our attorney and he said, here's an example of something you might do. So as a reminder, we're actually using that as a separate document that each of our teachers sign at the beginning of the year. As far as whether it's best to be specific or vague, I'm not a trained attorney, but I do know trained attorneys have determined there's the specificity is what serves school districts best based on their experience. So anyhow, we've leaned into that. So I guess what I've heard is you want to hear, you want to see for sure the differences in the updates, policy advisory updates that come monthly. You've seen the ASBA one, you'd like to see a trust one, kind of compare them
Right,
side
I
by
mean,
side.
if we're
I think
doing
that's
a
a great
reading of
idea.
this one, if we could read that one
That's
as
a
well,
great
and know
idea.
what would it
I'd
look like if
love to
we
see that.
So we
were
can,
to switch.
we can get that for you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think our recommendation for you is if you do decide you might want to make a change, please don't do it next month. Give us a lot of runway, at least a year, to do that. And what I might suggest that you consider recommending is that we look at, if we were going to shift to the trust, what would we want to pull over from our non-copyrighted current policies with ASBA that we would bring with us, and what that would look like. So you'd have, kind of, that's going to take some time for us to get there. So we, like I say, we need several months to get there. And at some point, you'll want to determine, you know what, let's table discussion of this, any further discussion, because we're super happy with the ASBA policy service, or we'd like to move to the trust at one point. But
How long do we have it for, the trust, when we signed up, when we paid?
so the initial fee has given us access to that, right?
And how, does that shut off at a certain time?
I don't think so. No, there's an annual fee to use those as our actual policies and get the policy advisory. We haven't done that, so we're not paying the annual fee. We just paid the initial fee to have access
Yeah.
to, so you could consider, and so that we could have that the student staff interaction piece as something that we could draw from.
What do you think?
I had made a note that ASBA policy was a 48-month subscription. Is that beginning this year? And like, if we agree with ASBA today, like if we have ASBA in 2025, 26, are we committed to 4 years of that?
We've paid
Or-
through the end of this coming school year for ASBA. So it does, in that respect as well, it makes a lot of sense to continue with ASBA. I'm 100% supportive of that. But after that, we need to determine whether we're going to renew in that.
So it's at the end of this school year
End of
that
this
we would
coming
have to
school year.
determine, and if we determine to go with ASBA, it's a 4-year commitment.
After that.
40,
I
it
don't
says
know if
it's a
there are other
48-month
options.
subscription.
There you go, okay.
I mean, these are my notes. This is nothing like legitimate. Like, I don't know for sure, but that's what I wrote down.
That's what we've
I
been
just
doing in
don't
the
know if
past.
it's
I don't know if
for
there
real.
are other subscription options that are shorter or not. We could certainly find out about that. But
Okay.
that's been the standard.
I had
for the
just written
last
that down. I don't
few
know what
times,
that.
and that's-
So we're going to use ASBA till the end of
That's
the
what, yeah, I'm just reviewing Andy's email.
25,
That's your
26.
recommendation.
25,
School year.
26 school year.
That's,
What kind of,
that's up to you. That's up to you. But that would be our recommendation for sure.
well,
minimum.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because if we tried to change now, we wouldn't have any runway. I'm just trying to figure out, when would staff like us to make the decision? Like, when would be like you got to make the decision by this time, or it's going to really hurt our preparation for the changeover. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, 6 months? 6 months before the end of next school year? Do we have 6 months? Do we have 2 weeks?
I feel like if we were using this upcoming school year to dig into it and find out, how they compare, I would say the spring or early summer at the latest, right, to allow us to say, okay, it's official, here's the new policies, we communicate it out with staff, provide additional training as needed, so.
It doesn't seem like a lot of time to change over. You talking about this next spring?
A
Correct,
year.
yeah. Again, if we were given
Year.
guidance to say,
I think-
start looking at both policies, and if we're using just the next couple months to continue to explore it, and we're not really rewriting anything, that would be different.
I could have thought I remembered when the trust presented and they were talking timelines, that if we didn't make a decision when they presented pretty quickly, that we would run out of time of bridging what we currently have with what they had. And if we didn't go with them right away, they recommended that around December for the decision to be made, so that they could use the spring, January, February, March,
That makes sense to me.
to do that bridge work and have it ready for the next school year.
Right.
That's the timeline I remembered.
If we're not going if the board doesn't have an appetite to potentially move to the trust policies, it's going to be some effort to do that bridge work, as Brian puts it. So let us know, and we won't do it, no problem. If you think, yeah, we're going to do this at some point, we're going to need to get that direction. And then ultimately, if you do, as we get close to either renewing with the trust, will need to vote on, renewing with ASBA, you'll need to vote to renew with ASBA, or you'll need to, at whatever month you decide, but probably in the summer is ideal, vote to remove all the current policies we have, and then for an anxious 90 seconds, we'll be without any policies at all, and then vote to adopt a new set of policies, if you want to do that. That's what other districts have done. That's the recommendation that they have. But as far as timing, Brett, it's a great question. I would think that at minimum, we'd need, like Andy says, we want to be,
Spring.
yeah, we'd want to have some months to do it, so spring would be the very, very latest. If your plan, again, we could make no change at all.
Yeah.
Or if we do
Yeah.
make a change in the summer,
Yeah, no.
if we're aiming for this point next year, say, for instance, we're not gonna renew with ASBA, and we're going to move to the trust. If that's the scenario, that's probably the best timing, and we'd need several months. So I would recommend at least by January, you let us know that this is the direction that we're wanting to go.
And I can tell we don't have a consensus, so my recommendation is let's put it on the agenda, let's dig in. Jen had a great suggestion, let's look at both of the changes side by side, and let's continue the discussion on the agenda next month until we can.
I know that the district administration is recommending that we do transition to the trust. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I would like to delve deeper into that too, that why your reasoning behind that decision, not decision, but recommendation. I don't you think, because what Andy brought up tonight, I thought made a lot of sense to me too. But I also see that you guys are asking us to possibly transition to the trust. So I think we need to delve
More
into this much deeper. So I'll get it on the future agenda as quickly as we can.
So it's on the agenda for tonight for discussion. So if you want to ask some of those questions, you can. We can prepare better as well. We've shared a little bit of information in the past, and then you asked to have both organizations come and present. You've got that, and if you've got additional questions tonight about why we have the recommendation we have, we'd be happy to address that. Or if you'd like more preparation around that, we can do that as well. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, I'm really open to having more of a period of discovery and
too.
just let you kind of dive a little bit further. And you may, just like the math curriculum, you may want to go with one and then all of a sudden realize you want to go with another. Revisit.
both.
So. What's that?
Both forever.
Just both forever. That's right. How do you guys all feel about that?
I think August would be maybe a good month to,
This coming
Kind of
August,
target.
and target it. And
as a deeper discussion, give the administration a chance to kind of build their,
case, not
talking
case.
points
That's
and-
not what I wanted to say.
give us a chance to look at how the policies differ and what the advisories look
I
like.
think that will be a really interesting first look to see how the trust and the ASBA new policy changes actually look. When we
Yeah, if we can have those earlier in the month, we could start to kind of do some of our own digging into that as well, and then hopefully come better prepared in August too for a good discussion around
We should be able to send
what we felt
you.
like the differences were.
What's the August date?
August 5th, I believe, 5th.
So that's a little over a month.
And school just started. It's more distance.
Starts in July.
July
That's-
30th.
Yeah, don't forget.
But
we
not
start school
next
in
year.
July.
Next year, we don't start till September. or
31 days from today. No, do it in September. Do a little distance.
Yeah, I was thinking we were still in June, so my August suggestion is kind of
That
off
would
by
be
a month.
next
What
year.
do you think?
September board meeting?
September's good
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, sounds
Would
good.
you like administration to present what we found as far as the differences and whatnot?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can,
definitely.
Andy, you've got some good questions. If you'll bullet point those for us and send them to Andy and I, we
Okay.
can share that with the trust attorneys and say, hey, there were some legal questions around the use of your policies. Can you address
Okay.
this? And we can share
Sure.
that information. And
All right.
That'll make
May
And
not
then
be
if-
for a while. I'm going to see my granddaughter tomorrow.
Oh.
Is there, I mean, I guess too, to
Might
ask
not be
him
typing to you.
if there's ever a concern in litigation about having the attorney that also drafted the policy be the attorney that's defending. I don't know if that's ever a concern.
Yep, that's a great question for the attorneys. I'm absolutely confident they have thought through that. we're not the first people to ask that
Right.
question. And
They probably
we're
have
not
an
the
answer
experts on
ready to
that,
go.
and they are.
Yeah.
And they're moving forward with it. So if they were to answer anything along the lines of, wow, that's a great point, I would be shocked. I'd be flabbergasted. But I don't know exactly what the answer to that is, and I'd love to
Yeah.
get the answer. So.
I
Yeah.
was just interested in getting reduced fees from Dave, Paoli, if we went with the trust. We
Yeah.
wouldn't use them as much.
Yeah, $250 less.
That's right.
I think I mentioned to you before, it wasn't until 3 or 4 interactions around the piece of trust policy that we're using for the staff-student interaction in our district that he even mentioned that he'd been part of the team to help draft those. So he did not lead with that. He was not selling anything, for whatever that's worth.
I do think also if we wait, if we go till September, I know that ASBA is looking at changes to their policy services as well.
They're going to use numbers?
I know they're rewriting, they rewrote, I think, section A of that manual.
Rewritten multiple
already.
sections
a
and
couple
shared it with
sections,
us.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
rewriting that, and it would be good for us to kind of learn more about what those changes are gonna look like and
Absolutely.
ask
would agree
questions of
completely.
them
Sure.
and, because they are being responsive to this, competition. I guess.
Yeah, and be candid, about why you think the trust, if that's what you recommended and what you're kind of seeing. It's, we like both organizations, but, what is going to be better for you working with it and what's going to be better to present to us and to make a decision.
Yeah. I'll be honest, if using the ASBA policies was part of being part of the ASBA organization, 100%. I would never recommend anything but that. I love ASBA. I love what it has done for our district and what it has, what it will do going forward. It's just so important that we all participate collectively in the many things that they do at the legislature, in networking with each other, sharing information. It's a super valuable organization. If this board was talking, like Humboldt's talking about, dropping ASBA like a hot rock and walking away, I'd be like, oh, you guys, you're killing me. Don't do this. I'm going to move to Santa Fe. Don't do this to me. But that's not the case. Their policy advisory is not as strong as the trust from my perspective. The trust one is much more clear and concise, easier to navigate. And on top of that, it happens to be way less expensive. That's worth thinking about. Sure. Frankly, in the scheme of things, $250 versus $4,800 in our whole budget is nothing. Probably shouldn't be a big part of your thought process, frankly. Yeah. Just one is in the views that we've had. I asked Andy to look at his pieces, Brian to look at his pieces, Sarah to look at her pieces, me to look at my pieces. We were all unanimous that the trust policies are much stronger and they're more terse and easier to navigate and understand and apply. That's what it boils down to. We can give you multiple examples of that when we come back to you. But again, it's completely up to you where we go.
Yeah.
We've been well served by the ASBA policies for years. It hasn't been a real problem. It's just something that's a better model car or whatever, and we're recommending that you look at that.
Cool. Well, we'll look forward to your presentation.
Right.
then.
Yeah,
I think it'll be helpful.
In September.
All right, moving on to.
I have a
future-
tangential item about ASBA. Are we going to try to go as a board to the December
We usually do.
meeting? Do we do that every December? I just need to calendar that out.
You're all invited and encouraged to participate.
Okay.
I think it's a really,
we
really
know the
valuable
dates yet?
professional development. Yeah, we sure do.
Probably
Yep.
do.
Yeah, I've got it on my calendar.
17th through the 19th.
I think that's right.
The timing is never really
December
good.
17th.
It's
It's not a great,
just-
it's not a
it's
great month to
horrible
have your
timing.
conference, but I really enjoyed it last year. Is there any other calendar dates in the next
Early
6 to 12
September.
months that you would encourage us to go do something? I think they have a law meeting, they have other meetings, but
There's a law conference in September. What is the date on that? Do you remember?
It's
I've got
gonna be
that on my calendar too.
September-
I think 18th or something.
That's
They
gonna be
just
September
changed it 'cause it
4th
was-
and 5th, I believe.
That's right.
It was going to
Governor.
conflict with the ARSA conference. Yeah, 4th and 5th is what I've got on my calendar, unless that's just been changed.
But there is a lot of really good information to be gathered at that conference as well.
The law
The
conference.
law conference, yeah.
so
You're
as a
in
new
Italy.
board member, what would you advise me to calendar for? Do I want to try to go to the law conference every year or every other year, or
That's a great
ASBA
question for Andy as well. Maybe you'd start.
Want me to?
Yeah.
You know, I think, I think all of those are really positive events for you to attend. The law conference and the annual conference in particular, I find really useful. But I just did the Summer Leadership Institute, and there was some really good sessions at that this last summer. It's the second time I've gone to that. Bolt's training, board operations leadership, was a very good one-day program, and they have that at multiple sites around Arizona, so you can find one that fits for you. The Yavapai County meeting is coming up. It will be held here in Prescott this year in September.
Do you have a date on that?
September 18th.
There you go. That's
is
the
that all
18th, I
day?
was remembering.
No, that'll be an afternoon event. Are we at Roof Street?
I don't know, I've not.
I have that on my calendar already.
He just asked if we would be willing to host, and
Yeah.
then he
I'll-
would get information to me.
Yeah, okay. But it will be hosted by PUSD, so,
So
I should
put
be
that
there.
on your calendar.
yeah.
So that would be a high priority one.
Yeah.
Would you, if you had to rank those for me,
That's a good
Bolts, Law, Annual Conference, Summer Leadership, how would you prioritize those for a new board member wet behind the ears?
Well, I would put the annual conference first. I think there's just a greater diversity of programs for you. I would probably, I think Summer Leadership and the Law Conference are similar. They're different approaches for sure. You know, Summer Leadership is going to focus more on kind of what I see as individual improvement that you can do, whereas the Law Conference is going to give you very technical, in the weeds type of legal advice about what you're doing as a board member.
Okay.
I think those two are both really useful. I think the Bolts is a nice tune-up. It kind of gives you just a refresher. Have you attended that, Sarah, in the
I've been
past?
twice, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since I've been. I should
Yeah.
probably go.
But it reiterates and kind of reinforces a lot of the things that you learn through the bigger conferences, I find, anyway. I don't know what your guys' experience has been, but.
Jane or Stan, have you guys gone to the Bolts
I have not done
conferences
the
or
Bolts,
the
no.
law conference?
No, I haven't done the law. He's done the law, I haven't.
Yeah.
I've only done the annual. But the law sounds interesting to me this year.
They're all good.
And
They're all
there are
good.
webinars that they offer throughout the year as well that you can take part in.
Right,
so-
your prioritization question is a really salient one for those of us who are working full-time, can't get to every
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing. And
Andy says they're all great. Go to all of them.
well, what he shared though,
Because Andy's
I think
retired.
the annual conference would be my number one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Annual
then
conference.
kind of the number 2 tier would be the Summer Leadership and the Law Conference.
Yeah, and if I had to choose between the two, probably the law conference is more useful to me.
Okay.
Super informative.
But they're both very good, very good events.
and they're prime examples of why I would never recommend separating from ASBEN anyway. Also, our board operations manual that we spent a lot of time and whatnot, the format and framework for that was something that was shared with us by ASBEN. There's just so many things that are valuable about our relationship with them.
I also have a financial question. If all 5 of us went to all 5 of these every year, does the district, I mean, is that going to be a budgetary concern for the district? I mean, we want to be considerate of,
Only 4 can go.
only 4 can go?
Choose who counts.
I'll bow out of the law one.
Usually me.
Is
'cause
that
I'm out of town.
is that
There's a
dumb
cost
question?
associated with each one,
Yeah.
the housing and whatnot, but it's worth the benefit that it brings, I think, to our board. I would endorse as many of you going to as many things as you can within your personal schedules.
Yeah. And I equate it to Clark's comment about the ASBA policy being 4,000 versus, lesser with the, and the scope of what our budget is. You guys, going and continuing to educate as a board member, how to, represent your constituents the best is invaluable. So I would not have the money be something that you should consider unless you really want to.
Thank you.
So next meeting is September 5th at 5.
It's August 5th.
August 5th.
You made my night. And then now I'm sad again.
That's like a 1 weekend of school.
It's right after these get started.
And then, what else? Oh, first day of school,
Yep.
this is July,
31st.
that's all we know.
I know last,
Before we quit, I'd like the minutes to reflect that it's Clark's birthday, and happy birthday,
birthday.
Superintendent. We appreciate your leadership.
I had 3 or 4 people ask me, what are you going to do tonight for your birthday? I've got a board meeting. They're like, oh, man.
but it's the shortest board meeting of the year.
But you
Shortest
got,
one we've had yet.
So far since we've been on.
Yep.
but you got cookies.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
right. Cookies, that was super nice.
And you got your wife to come to
So,
the board
yeah, Sonia
meeting.
usually watches from home. She came, I got to see her right there in the front row smiling at me.
Oh, that's
I think she and David are the only ones
That
that
was
watch
pretty nice.
every meeting.
We're adjourned, by the way.
Fantastic.